Okay, it's 6:57. We're going to get ready to start here pretty soon. Can you guys hear me? For some reason. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. How are you all this evening? Hopefully good.
Very good.
Are we ready, Stacy?
I'm ready if you are, sir.
Very well. I'd like to open the October 13th meeting of the Citrus Heights Planning Commission. It is 7 p.m. Commissioner Engel, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Thank you very much. And the roll call, please.
Commissioner Engel,
Here.
Commissioner Magnavowski,
Aye, here.
Commissioner Nishimura,
Here.
Commissioner Turner Mike,
Here.
Commissioner Van Duker,
Here.
Vice Chair Flowers. I see you on here. Chair Sheeler.
Here.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Consent calendar approval of minutes for September 22nd, 2021.
Do any of the commissioners have any comments, clarifications, corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept?
I move to approve the minutes from last meeting.
I'll second.
Please help Stacy out and identify yourself when you make the motion, please.
Will do. Thanks.
Next item, please.
We need to take the motion.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Magnavowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura,
Aye.
Commissioner Turner Mike,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Duker,
Yes.
Chair Flowers, Chair Flowers, are you there? She,
Vice Chair Flowers, we can't hear you at the moment.
I think she's moving to try to get a better signal.
she just turned off her camera.
Is that any better?
Yes, we can hear you.
There we go. I think I had 2 circuits going.
I needed your vote on the minutes, please.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I need your vote on the minutes.
Yes, I apologize.
That's okay. Thank you. Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passed. Minutes approved.
Next item, please.
Public comment. Under public comment, section 54954.3, members of the audience may address the commission on any agenda items within the jurisdiction of the commission or on any agenda item. Those wishing to speak on non-agenda items will be called upon at the beginning of the meeting. Those wishing to speak for or against an agenda item will be called upon after the presentation by the city planning department and the applicant for that agenda item.
Is there anyone that has an issue that they'd like to speak to that is not on the agenda?
We don't have any raised hands or emails. Oh, we do have a raised hand. I believe Mr. Crofton is probably here for the next item. But we should unmute him and confirm that, please, Stacy.
William, you're unmuted.
Yes,
Are you waiting for the next item, sir?
yes.
Okay, we will put you on for you'll be heard after the next item.
All right. Next item, please.
Public hearing, item 5A, East Lawn Cemetery, 5757 Greenback Lane. The applicant is proposing to remove 5 protected trees on an undeveloped 4-acre parcel to accommodate the expansion of the cemetery and cremation of approximately 4,500 burial plots and the associated infrastructure. The permit is part of a larger project being led by Sacramento County. The project relies on approved entitlements through Sacramento County, and its staff report relies on the initial study and mitigated negative declaration for CEQA purposes, as Sacramento County is the lead agency. The tree permit was continued from September 22nd, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Project planner, Eric Singer.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? Great. All right. So as Stacy mentioned, we are discussing the tree permit portion of the item that was continued from the meeting on September 22nd for the East Lawn Cemetery expansion. Just a brief overview of the item that we discussed on the 22nd. This body determined that the Sacramento County initial study and mitigated negative declaration were the appropriate level of environmental review and subsequently approved the use permit allowing for the expansion of the cemetery. So those 2 items are not for discussion tonight. Specifically, we are discussing the tree permit motion that was continued to the meeting this evening to gain a better understanding of concerns that were raised by a neighbor to the site, as well as to better clarify the tree preservation ordinance rules. So looking first and foremost, wanted to just do a brief overview on, again, what is being proposed in terms of the tree permit. First, there are 5 protected trees on site. They are all proposed for removal, and mitigation will be required for all 5 of those trees, totaling 184 inches in diameter at breast height. Now, wanted to get a little bit into the tree preservation ordinance, not too much into the weeds, but just to give everyone a clear understanding of what exactly a protected tree is as defined in the Citrus Heights zoning code. So first off, it is classified as any of the following. A native oak tree with a diameter of 6 or more inches diameter at breast height, that's measured 54 inches off the ground, or a multi-trunked oak tree that has an aggregate diameter of 10 inches DBH. Additionally, what is considered a protected tree is any mature tree that's 19 inches or more DBH, provided that the tree is not a willow, fruit tree, eucalyptus, alder, cottonwood, pine, catalpa, fruitless mulberry, or palm. Now, none of those are species at issue tonight. We are talking about 5 of the same species. They're all valley oaks. One point of clarification, a protected tree within the Citrus Heights zoning code, it's defined as requiring a tree permit for the alteration, whether that be trimming or full removal of the tree, and to ensure that mitigation measures are followed for the removal of said tree. This mitigation can be achieved with either an inch-for-inch replacement of the trees in question, or payment of $298 for every inch of tree removed into the city's tree mitigation fund. These funds are then used for the replanting of trees across Citrus Heights. So listening back to the minutes and listening to the recording from the hearing on September the 22nd, I was able to kind of discern 3 pretty distinct concerns from the neighbor to the site. So concern number 1 was that the arborist report that was put together for the purposes of this project was insufficient, and that the arborists themselves had an expired license. At the time, staff was unable to confirm the arborist report that had done this, the assessment for this particular project. It is in fact Davy Resource Group, and the arborist in question is Lori Murphy. She has an ISA number of WE7844AM. Just for the purposes of public disclosure, that is a fully valid and current license. Now, in subsequent correspondence with the neighbor, I did speak with him since the time of the meeting on the 22nd, and he clarified that the arborist report that he was referring to was actually for a tree permit that was issued by the city in 2019. After searching city records, staff did find the original arborist report from 2019 that was also conducted by Lori Murphy of Davy Resource Group. This report was forwarded to the neighbor in question. The report done in 2020 can be seen as attachment number 6 to tonight's staff report. Now, in terms of the question of whether the work that was done to the trees, the tree trimming work was valid or done in a proper manner, the subsequent report that Lori did in 2020 assessed the same trees that were cataloged in the report from 2019. The 5 trees in question on the site tonight showed no signs of the trimming having been done incorrectly or improperly on any of the 5 trees in question. So sufficiently, hopefully, answering that particular question. The second question or concern that the neighbor had voiced had to do with the fact that this arborist is also the city's consulting arborist. And we did discuss this with the city attorney to determine if there was any potential conflict of interest that this may pose. It was determined that there is no conflict of interest. Lori Murphy does have contracts with several jurisdictions in the area. She is legally allowed to consult for cities in which she is also doing independent assessments separate from ones contracted by the city. Finally, the third kind of main concern that seemed to be raised was there was an understanding that the trees in question were protected in perpetuity when the neighbor had purchased his home and would therefore never be removed, whether that was through some kind of document or something that was listed on the preliminary title report. That wasn't necessarily clarified, but he was fairly certain that there was something that was put in writing that showed that these trees should be protected. After looking through documents made available through Sacramento County, as well as just the preliminary title report itself that is seen as attachment number 9 for tonight's staff report, staff was unable to find any documentation showing that those trees would be protected in the manner in which the neighbor described. So backing out again here, wanted to just look at the Citrus Heights portion of the site in context to the expansion that's occurring around within the Sacramento County portion as well. One of the questions that the commission had that night was just to get a better picture of what the site itself looks like. And that's why I wanted to present this slide. It's just a snapshot from Google Earth, kind of showing it an angle facing northward, essentially where these trees are in relation to both the property lines as well as just the existing cemetery. Those 5 trees have been outlined in yellow. Again, all 5 are valley oaks and are all protected species. So looking at their proposed site plan, their proposed landscaping plan, we wanted to clearly demarcate which of these trees are being removed as opposed to what trees are being installed. So everything marked with an X is a tree to be removed. Everything that is indicated by a green circle or even these pink circles are indicating trees that are to be installed by the applicant. A quick rundown. Again, all 5 are valley oaks ranging from 22 inches to 47 inches DBH. 4 out of the 5 were considered to be in good condition. 1 is in fair condition. The notes provided by the arborist showed there were some signs of stress, some previous failure with large hangers. I did confirm over the phone with Lori today that none of those signs of stress or previous failure were an indication of trimming being done improperly. Those are notes that are marked showing natural failure and natural stress that is occurring to the trees themselves. So the applicant, in response to the commission's uneasiness about their justification for removing the trees themselves, has actually provided a justification statement to kind of help clarify the need for the removal of the trees to allow for the expansion of the site. That can be seen as attachment number 4 to the staff report. The first kind of reason for removal of these trees is to achieve the necessary slope across the site. So essentially grassy areas within the cemetery grounds need to have a minimum slope of 2% so that they'll drain off appropriately and not become swampy, thus necessitating the regrading of the existing site, which does not have that required 2% slope. With the proposed grading plan, the existing trees would then be approximately 2 to 3 feet on average under the proposed grade. And what that would do is create wells where water could flow and essentially flood those existing trees, thereby causing further health problems and possibly negating the whole purpose of preserving the trees in the first place. Another reason listed within the justification statement was that the pedestrian path locations may potentially conflict with some of those existing tree drip lines. It's important for them, just from a logistical standpoint, to have clear paths of travel to help minimize casket carrying distances. And last but not least, the preservation of those existing 5 trees would prevent the creation of approximately 670 burial spaces, or what is the equivalent of about 15% of the usable area of the site. It is a fairly constrained site, as you're aware, so they're trying to maximize the ability to meet the public need in what is unfortunately, due to recent events, a growth industry. And they're doing their best to keep pace, and by not allowing for the expansion of almost 700 burial spaces, it is imposing an undue burden on that ability to do so. Lastly, I just wanted to show the proposed grading plan. So again, the 5 trees are marked with black X's. This is part of the project plan set. It's page number 2, listed on attachment number 5 to tonight's staff report. And this is simply to illustrate the proposed grade, which is demarcated by these dark black lines indicating 145, 144. This is the finished elevation that's proposed. Excuse me. The existing elevation is the lighter gray lines underneath. So for example, the tree down here at the very bottom, there's a proposed grade of 130 to 131. And it's kind of difficult to tell from this, but the existing grade there is between 128 to 129 to 130, kind of slowly going up the grade, whereas they're actually needing a steeper grade to achieve that runoff, that 2% slope. In essence, this is just reiterating that new grade would be on average 2 to 3 feet above the existing grade and therefore posing potential problems for those existing trees. So looking at the mitigation for the trees being removed, again, this is based on the city's mitigation requirements that it's either an inch-for-inch replacement of the trees in question or payment into the mitigation fund. The trees being removed from the Citrus Heights parcel total 184 inches in DBH. The trees that are proposed for replanting on the Citrus Heights parcel alone are 104 inches DBH, and that is coming in the form of 52 24-inch box trees, which are the equivalent of 2 inches in DBH. That means that a remainder of approximately 80 inches of DBH would still need to be mitigated for considering the loss of these 5 trees. One thing staff is asking the commission to consider is that on the remainder of the county parcels, and when you look at this as a whole, essentially, you're looking at it as one continuous site, and the line between the unincorporated part of Sacramento County and Citrus Heights is invisible in the real world. So if you're looking at the East Lawn parcel itself, it's just one continued undeveloped space. What staff is proposing is the number of trees that the applicant is replanting across the remainder of the county parcels more than compensate for the 80 inches that need to be mitigated for within the Citrus Heights parcel. That's based on the calculation that they're removing 20 trees and 344 inches from the county. However, they are replanting 556 24-inch box trees across the county parcel, which totals 1,112 inches in DBH. That gives them a surplus of approximately 768 inches across the remainder of the site. Staff finds that this should be more than adequate to compensate for that loss of 80 inches, considering both the physical constraints of the Citrus Heights parcel, as well as the fact that, again, when viewed in the real world, this is just one continuous site. Last but not least, one of the kind of main considerations that I'm sure is of great concern to the neighboring parcels is the fact that by losing these trees, you're losing a valuable privacy resource or just, a natural beauty resource. And all along, the applicant has proposed a perimeter planting of trees to go along with their overall landscape plan, essentially creating more or less a 7-foot landscaping buffer between the existing fence line and where the beginning of the cemetery grounds would start. The original perimeter planting plan called for a variety of evergreen and deciduous trees, so among them holly oak, which is the Quercus ilex, and Chinese pistache, which is actually deciduous. After discussing this with the applicant, we actually came to an agreement that these trees should all be evergreen trees to ensure maximum privacy year-round for the neighboring parcels to the site. So with that, this is the recommended motion by staff. We still are recommending approval of the tree permit to remove the 5 trees in question, pursuant to the findings in the staff report. Again, I am available to answer any questions, and the applicant themselves are available to speak. In fact, I believe they have a prepared statement, but they're also available to answer any questions the commissioners may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Any of the commissioners have questions?
This is Commissioner Engel. I don't have any questions. I would like to say I appreciate Mr. Singer's additional information that he provided through the week and with our new staff report. And I fully understand better this week. And I just wanted to say thank you for letting me catch up.
I do have a question. I still don't understand why they wouldn't pay into the tree mitigation fund to make up for those 80 inches that the city is losing.
Well, that is at the commission's discretion. You do have the ability to condition the project to require that payment into the mitigation fund still occurs. Staff found that when looking at the site as a whole, the number of trees that are being replanted across the entirety of the site are achieving the effect that is desired within the mitigation, ordinance. Essentially, that the applicant is doing everything within their power to replant trees on site and to regreen a space that is losing trees of such a substantial stature. So in that context, staff found that the replanting plan that they had in place would be achieving that end. But again, it is at the commission's discretion to condition the project as they see fit.
No, just to chime in, our preference is always to plant trees as opposed to taking money into in lieu fee if we can. The thought process being that we'd rather see those trees go up immediately and start growing than take some time to find places to plant trees elsewhere in the city.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, I know Mr. Crofton wants to have a speak, and also the project proponent, so I will open the public hearing. Mr. Crofton, or Stacy, would you please unmute Mr. Crofton?
Chair, customarily, we would start with the applicant.
I apologize. All right, applicant, please.
Thank you. This is Steve Bartell. I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for East Lawn. I am traveling, so I apologize. I'm only on audio. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Commission Chair, Commissioners, Mr. Casey and Mr. Singer, thank you so much for your time. East Lawn really appreciates your oversight in ensuring what is in the best interest of the community. I believe that in the work that our cemetery land planning architect, Mr. Cable, has done, certainly addresses the issues in the project as best we can, given the constraints that we have. So I'm not going to touch on a great deal of that. And thank you, Mr. Singer, for the presentation that you did. I thought that was very, very good and very thorough. I would like to just say Sierra Hills Memorial Park has been an active cemetery since 1957. Long before any neighboring residential developments were established. Cemeteries, as you know, are an important part of any community and really help to preserve the heritage of the area's residents and honor their loved ones. And I know Mr. Crofton is waiting to speak to you as well. And I just want to bring up at the September 22nd meeting where this tree permit was up for discussion and approval, Mr. Crofton had alleged that Sierra Hills had engaged an arborist with an expired or falsified license. And I want to ensure the commission that has since been proven without a doubt to be a falsehood. Mr. Crofton also alleged that there was an agreement between East Lawn and the previous property owner from whom he purchased his two properties in 2001 regarding the trees in question. Mr. Crofton provided no proof, nor was he asked by the commission for any proof of this. I've been East Lawn CFO and corporate secretary since 1992, and I want to assure you that East Lawn does not make these types of agreements with neighbors. And if we did, it would certainly be in writing. More recently, after learning that the arborist in question is fully licensed and is the same arborist used by the city of Citrus Heights, Mr. Crofton then changed his complaint to that of a tree trimmer we utilized a couple of years ago. Our general manager, Rick Vandenhoek, he's also on the line, confirmed with Mr. Singer that East Lawn lawfully paid for and obtained permits from the city to trim those trees in question that Mr. Crofton was complaining about. I've also subsequently learned that on numerous occasions, Mr. Crofton has come onto our property and disrupted operations and harassed employees and subcontractors alike. He has since been told he is not welcome on the property. Now, Mr. Crofton's baseless allegations against East Lawn before this commission are slanderous, and the resulting delays in obtaining the tree permit has caused us economic harm. I just want to say in closing, we've done everything by the book and have legally complied with every city and county regulation in the operation and development of the cemetery, including in all respects as relates to this proposed expansion. As noted in my letter to the commission that I sent to Mr. Singer, and I hope you all had a chance to look at that, we certainly have and will continue to follow every jurisdictional and environmental requirement in the operation and development of the cemetery, including applicable tree mitigation measures. This proposed expansion, we feel, will greatly enhance the area by adding more manicured green space versus the currently fallow land, and will do so with the addition of an assortment of trees that generations will enjoy. So thank you again for your time. that was my statement, and I really, I appreciate your consideration in granting us this tree permit.
Thank you, Mr. Stedfield. Mr. Crofton? Stacy, would you please unmute Mr. Crofton?
Mr. Crofton has been unmuted.
And here we are. I'm looking at the permit and the ISA number that I reported in 2019. So I don't know. And that was the day you asked me to leave your property, was in 2019. And I haven't been back since. I just want to be clear to everybody involved in this. But I got the receipts on that, whatever. Now, the price on protection, it sounds weird, but I'll get past it. As far as the grading goes, I mean, if they're planning on raising the grade of where that tree is, I think it was tree number 489, which is the closest to my house, 3 feet. I mean, are they going to be looking down into my backyard? I mean, I have a 6-foot fence now, and I can see the base of the oak tree for the most part. I don't know what the drainage is going to look like. We've had floods in the past in this court that have come from that area, from that way. Well, it was a combination of both, but so I'm a little bit concerned about that. I know, is my yard going to become a swamp? Because I don't have a 2% grade. It sounds like somebody is going to get swamped out here, and it might be me. What do I know? I don't know. As far as the arborist that they employed, Walkatil Tree Services from 2701 Eureka Avenue was their business address. Yeah, they were cutting, it was my understanding that you could only make a cut that was like 4 inches in diameter. We can walk the site. I can show you cuts that are 2 to 3 times larger than a 4-inch diameter cut all along the property back there from the work they did. And that's why I was upset. And that's why I went to the property to complain. But, I have a feeling that I'm barking up the wrong tree on trying to get these trees saved, even though I really like to get number 489, which is about 20 feet from my fence line again. I don't understand if they're raising it up. And in their opening statement, they did talk about wanting to have above ground burial plots. So when I was talking to Mr. Singer, he said there was no easement that they could put a burial site or a headstone basically a foot from my fence, I guess. I'm not really comfortable with that. I just have a feeling that East Lawn could have been a little bit more forthcoming with the neighbors that it was going to directly affect. On the Sacramento project, there's a 25-foot easement from that fence line to the cemetery. But for some reason in Citrus Heights, it's all the way up to the fence line, because if there was a 25-foot easement, then tree 489, that beautiful oak in my backyard, would still be staying. So, I don't have a lot more to say. I hope you guys take my worries into consideration. Like I said, me and East Lawn, we probably don't get along too good. I've been threatened by their employees. They've kicked me off their property. So I call it a wash, right? But like I said, sounds like mob stuff when you put a price on protection of things. But what do I know? Thank you for your time. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Crofton. Do we have any other speakers?
No additional.
Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any further questions by commissioners?
I would like to know if Mr. Singer can address the easement question.
I can. So the 25-foot setback that he is referring to is actually the building setback. So listed on the development plans for the Sacramento County expansion portion of the project, they indicate a 25-foot building setback. That's actually per their zoning code. Considering there are no buildings proposed on the Citrus Heights parcel, that particular setback was not required to be called out. had the applicant been proposing a mausoleum, an accessory structure, a shed, anything that is considered a structure in our city zoning code, we would have required that that setback be demarcated and obeyed.
So the neighbor is correct that he could have like a headstone right up against his fence.
Considering we do not consider a gravestone or a burial plot to be an accessory structure per the zoning code, technically it could go up to the property line. In this particular case, as I may remind you guys, the landscape buffer that they are proposing, that the applicant is proposing, is approximately 7 feet from the fence line. So that should provide hopefully an adequate buffer to meet Mr. Crofton's desire for more of a privacy buffer there.
Any other questions? Thank you. Can you see the motion again, please? Do I have a motion?
Yes, I move to.
I would make a motion as long as they still pay into the tree mitigation fund. I'm looking at the zoning code, and if it's unfeasible, an in lieu fee calculated at $298 per inch DBH shall be paid into the tree mitigation fund. So I think that they should still pay into the tree mitigation fund.
So comment, Commissioner Nishimura, I do like where you're coming from. And on the website, it says, why does the city regulate private trees? And it says trees contribute to the attractiveness and livability of citrus heights. So 100%, I think the trees should be in citrus heights. But after considering that they're gonna remove 5 but plant 50, and those 50 trees are going to be huge one day, even though the calculation doesn't seem like, fair where they're removing 5, but yet they're adding, 50. Honestly, I would be okay with, with moving with the motion as is without the modification.
So do I have a
Okay, so
motion?
just procedurally here, I want to clarify. We had the original motion. I'm not sure who made it first. Whether it was Commissioner
was
McNofsky
Paul.
or
Yes.
it was.
McNofsky.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have Commissioner McNofsky's motion. We'll see if there's a second to that, and then we could take a vote from there.
I didn't fully read the text though of the motion. I just said I move, but then I stopped.
Why don't you clarify then, if you don't mind, and make the motion that you want to make, and then we'll see how it goes from there.
Okay. I move to approve a tree permit to remove 5 protected trees totaling 184 inches DBH within Citrus Heights jurisdiction based on the findings and conditions contained in the staff report.
I second that. Vice Commissioner Flowers.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Engel,
Aye.
Commissioner Magnavowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura,
No.
Commissioner Turner Mike,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Duker,
Yes.
Vice Chair Flowers,
Aye.
Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
We had 5 ayes and 1 no. Motion passed.
Thank you, Commission.
Next item, Stacy.
Item 5B, Calvary Cemetery, 7101 Verner Avenue, file UPMOD 21-03. The applicant requests a use permit modification to amend a previous condition of approval to allow a 320 square foot room to be used for embalming services within the new administration Administration Center for Calvary Cemetery. The project is categorically exempt under California Environmental Air Quality Act under Section 15301, Existing Facilities, Project Planner Allison Bermudez.
Good evening, Commission. We have another cemetery on the agenda in October. This is great, huh? All right, let me pull up my presentation real quick here. Okay. All right, this is for Calvary Cemetery, so near the other one, but further up 80 off of Werner Avenue. It's a 52, almost 53 acre site there adjacent to I-80. We saw this project in 2019 it was actually. And before you reviewed this project for the cemetery expansion, which at that time was for the creation and construction of a 21,000 square foot administration center, which included the chapel, a reception area and office. Also included the construction of a maintenance building and a 4,200 square foot garage. So that was presented to you in 2019 and the project was approved and it's currently under construction. So if you've been in that area, you've seen the administration center start work. It's looking really great out there. So since 2019, many things have changed. And one being some of their needs at the cemetery. Here is a picture of what will be completed there at the administration center. It's the chapel, the offices, and the reception area, and the site plan of that building where it sits along Werner Avenue and near Oak Lakes Lane. So as I mentioned, since 2019, several things have changed, and one being the need for embalming. So this project was a master plan community or a master plan development by Calvary Cemetery, which is part of the Sacramento Diocese. And they had envisioned that at some point in time, this Calvary Cemetery would offer embalming services. They did project that need further down the road, thinking it would be about 3 to 5 years further down the road. So when they built this building and designed it from construction to plumbing to all the utility services, embalming was envisioned to be part of that, of the use at that space. But when they came in 2019, it wasn't shown on the plans or included in the project description because they thought that would be a future need. Well, since then, we've had the pandemic and the need for embalming has certainly increased. There are other facilities, St. Mary's, that does embalming is over capacity. So their projection from 3 to 5 years is now present. So when you look back at the permit that was approved in 2019, embalming was specifically excluded from the use. And that was an oversight to some degree, not realizing that they couldn't just start doing it when they need it in the future. So they're proposing to change that condition of approval where it stated no embalming was to occur. So it's just a use change. There's no proposed plan to increase the building, change the footprint, or any of the site configurations or designs that we've already approved. It is just a modification of a condition of approval. And we have received a couple letters from the community that were provided to you, and a lot of their concerns were that this was the first step to cremation. I spoke with the applicant about that, and they have assured us that is not part of their master plan in the future. As a matter of fact, this building is not designed for it. It couldn't even be done in this building. It would take a completely different construction building, and they are not have that in their future. So embalming had always been part of their plan, but cremation is not part of the plan now or in the future. So what we're talking about is converting an existing 300 square foot room that's within the floor plan that you approved that prior was called a dressing room. And so this larger area here, this 3 building compiled is the chapel, the reception area, and then the dressing room was over on the left-hand side here. And so on the slide is a large blow up of that room. So you can see it's just like a 16-foot by 20-foot area that previously was going to be used for dressing of the bodies. And that room will be used now for, if this project is approved, for the embalming. So no floor plan changes, anything, just the use of that space. I did want to talk a little bit about embalming because I've probably learned more about it than I ever thought I would learn. But just to kind of lay it out there so you all understand that what embalming is and it's how it's regulated. Embalming is a medical procedure that's done through fluids that are injected into the body. And these fluids are stored and regulated as far as how much they can keep on site. They're regulated by the Sacramento Metro Fire District. So the applicant has had appropriate conversations with the fire district and understand the keeping of how much they can keep on site and the storage methods that will be required. The mortuary industry, and specifically embalming, is a licensed industry through the Department of Consumer Affairs. And so the cemetery and all operations will comply with their regulations. And then the embalmers themselves are licensed, have a professional license that they hold that is also provided through the Bureau. So all operations occurring at the mortuary facility will be under the guise and operation of the Consumer Affairs. And so the proposal tonight is to amend what was known as Condition 3 on the original permit that was approved in 2019. Originally said the project does not authorize cremation or embalming activities at the site, as shown on the screen, and the proposal is just to strike "or embalming." So this will still not authorize cremation at the site, so no other changes except allowing the embalming. And I also did add, suggest we revise condition number 25. This is not included in your staff report, so I've added this since you've received your packet. And add to condition number 25, they do maintain their proper licensing from Consumer Affairs, the Funeral Bureau, as required, and that the handling of all the human remains, the waste that's generated from the embalming, complies with all the appropriate agencies and regulations as required. Two motions before you. One, to adopt the resolution that was presented, that finding that the project is exempt from CEQA under the Class 1 exemption, and approve the modification to the use permit to revise that condition number 3 and condition 25. The applicant is on with us tonight. Should you have any specific questions on their request or plans, and I'm sure they'd be happy to answer anything that you have.
Thank you, Ellison. Commissioners, any questions? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing for the applicant to speak. All right.
We have no raised hands at this time.
Looks like Scott's looking a way to unmute himself. There we go.
There, I found it. I wasn't sure if I was going to be unmuted or if I needed to do it myself. So thank you for the opportunity just to speak really quickly. Again, in 2019, we did come before this body to get the approval to move forward with the building. We were aware at that time we would need a use permit change, and we worked with staff on that. It has definitely come sooner than we anticipated, as Ms. Bermudez had stated earlier, but we are at that point of need. It is within the facility structure, and so we definitely wanted to say thank you, at least for your time, and appreciate your time in reviewing this application.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I move to adopt resolution number 21-07, finding that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA for section 15301 of the California Environmental Quality Act, exemption class 1.
I second. Turner Mike.
Please call the roll, Stacy.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Magnavowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura,
Aye.
Commissioner Turner Mike,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Duker. We can't hear you, Andrew.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Vice Chair Flowers,
Aye.
Chair Sheeler,
Aye.
motion passed unanimously.
I move to approve the use permit modification for Calvary Cemetery located at 7101 Werner Avenue, subject to the findings contained in the staff report and the conditions of approval provided as Exhibit A.
I second Turner Mike.
Call the roll, please, Stacy.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Magnavowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura,
Aye.
Commissioner Turner Mike,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Duker,
Aye.
Vice Chair Flowers,
Aye.
Chair Sheeler,
Aye.
motion passed unanimously.
Any determination by the planning commission may be appealed to the city council by filing a written notice of appeal and the appropriate filing fee of $250 with the city clerk not later than 10 days after the date on which the determination is made. Next item, please.
Regular calendar, we have none. Next item is planning manager comments. Casey,
Yes, I just want to remind the commission that we will be having a special meeting next week on the 20th at 7 p.m. for the Sunrise Tomorrow specific plan consideration. So I think we checked in with all you a while back. Want to make sure you're still able to make that. You will be getting a lengthy packet of information to read probably later tonight. Most of it you have seen before, the lengthy part. So hopefully it won't take you too much time, but feel free to reach out if you have questions once you dig into that.
and then
Casey,
Ryan,
is that going to be a Zoom meeting or in person?
Yes, that will still be a Zoom meeting. We do not have a set date to come back in person, unfortunately. My guess would be it's probably after the first of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan, I just had a real quick question. We didn't read the appeal verbiage after the item 5A. Was that necessary?
Yeah, and I think we could go ahead and do it now, even though that's, obviously passed, but it's still applicable. So if the chair doesn't mind, or Stacy, if you don't mind reading it, let's go ahead and put that on the record before we close the meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, I apologize. I realize I'm sorry. I had to step away for a moment. On the issue of the East Lawn item, any determination made by the planning commission may be appealed to the city council by filing a written notice of appeal and the appropriate filing fee of $250 with the city clerk not later than 10 calendar days after the date on which the determination is made. I would ask the question of the attorney, since I did not say that when Mr. Crompton was on, should we send him an email or some communication to that effect?
Yes, we should. So we'll have a staff member go ahead and communicate with him directly so you can be aware of that. Good point.
Chair, just to point out, is Mr. Crofton did jump off immediately after making his comments, just so you're aware of that. But we will follow up with an email to him.
Yes, and I would suggest that we ensure that we get a reply of the receipt of that communication. Very good. I think we are done. Nothing else. I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good evening, all.
Good night.
Meeting was adjourned at 7:51.
We'll see you next week.